So hello internet, what's up? Welcome to JS Cafe. In today's video, we are going to write the polyfill of reduce, and we will also have a detailed explanation of what is the reduce function for the arrays. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So you remember a while ago I uploaded this video that was make my trip front-end interview questions, and if you remember correctly, then in the round one we had the same exact question, that was to write polyfill of reduce. So this was asked for make my trip SD2 front end role. So today we are going to write the polyfill of reduce, and we are going to discuss what is this reduce function doing in depth. So let's get started. So let's check the definition of array.prototype.reduce from the MDN itself, and I'll explain it line by line to you. The reduce method executes a user supplied reducer callback function on each element of the array. Okay, let's understand it better. So it says that you have to supply an array. Okay, let's come over here and let me create an array for you. So let me take a pencil. Okay, so let's suppose this is an array. Sorry for the bad drawing. But let's suppose you have 1, you have 2, you have 3, you have 4. Okay, and let's suppose you have a callback function. Okay, this is some function, this is some callback function, CB callback. Okay, and it says that what reduce function is doing, reduce function is executing this callback function for each item of this array. Okay, and whatever was the outcome returned, whatever was the value returned for this one. Okay, like when the one was applied to this callback did some computations, it returned some value. Okay, let's suppose that value was returned. Okay, and now another time when this 2 is going to be executed with this callback function, so this callback function will have knowledge what was the computation previously. Okay, so it works something like you passed on the value, you passed 1, the value was computed. Okay, this value was saved for computation 2, and when 2 was executed, so when 2 was executed, it had memory that okay, when I was executing, I have the knowledge of the outcome of 1, and now when 2 will be executed, it will have the knowledge as well. Okay, again, let's suppose the outcome in this was A, for example. Now when 2 was executed and the callback function was executed, it got some value B. Okay, and again when this 3 was going to be executed, it knows that in the previous computations for 1 and 2 the final outcome was B. Now callback will execute for this 3, and let's suppose the output comes C, then C comes here, and now again when the 4 is executed, then this will have knowledge. Okay, so the previous compute up till the previous 3 computations, outcome was C actually. Now it's my turn to get executed with this callback function. The callback function can be anything, for example adding 2 numbers, right, or whatsoever you want. So I hope you got the idea. Okay, the idea is to execute this callback function for each and every item of the array, and this is the same line that MDN is saying to us. The reduce method executes a user supplied reducer callback function on each element of the array in order. In order means that in sequential order, 1 2 3 4. Okay, and passing in return the value from the calculation on the preceding element. Okay, so the when 2 was getting executed, the preceding element was 1, right, and whatever was the calculation happened before for the 1, let's suppose the outcome was A, then what it says, that it says that passing in return the value from the calculation of the preceding element. So when 2 will be executed for this callback function, you have to pass the preceding value. Okay, that was a, so you have to pass a to this callback function. Okay, so this was up till here. Now the final result of the running the reducer across the all of the elements of the array is a single value. Okay, and at the end, whatever was executed in this whole thing, that would be returned in a single value, for example d. Okay, so it, what reducer function does, it returns a single value. So you can think of scenarios in your interviews where you have to suppose return the sum of the array, you have to return the products of the array, okay, for items of the array to be precise. So reduce function comes in very handy. Okay, and the next thing is, the first time that a callback is run, there is no return value from the previous calculation. Okay, this is fair enough point, right? Let me zoom in a little. Okay, it says that the first time that the callback is run, there is no return value of the previous calculation. This means that, let's suppose we were executing for the value 2 and we knew that a was the outcome from the preceding element. Okay, but when we are executing 1, there is no preceding element, right, before 1. Then what should we pass to this this callback function? So this says that if supplied an initial value. Okay, so if you want, you can supply a initial value, so that when this 1 is getting executed, that initial value will be treated as a preceding value over here. Okay, for example, some value z, you provide some value z over here. Now that will be taken as a preceding value when we are computing it for a. And if we are not providing any initial value z, then let's say what it has to say. So if supplied an initial value, the value may be used in its place. Okay, this we saw. Otherwise, the array element at the index 0 is used as the initial value and the iteration starts from the next element, index 1. Okay, so which means that the earlier example which we saw, right, we were starting from 1. Okay, so that is not the case over here. What will happen is, let me create a fresh scenario again. So this was, I will try to create a better one this time. Okay, much better, I guess. 2, 3 and 4. There we go. Now this says that we had this callback function. Okay, this is our callback function, cp. Yeah, now it says that if you have not supplied an initial value, okay, if you have not supplied an initial value, then this reduce function will start iterating from 2. Okay, and it will take 1 as the preceding value. Okay, so actually the iteration will start from 1, so initial value becomes 1 and the iteration starts from the index number 1, which is element 2 over here. Okay, so this is the complexity of this whole reduce function. And yeah, and okay, so let's have a look at the example over here. We have an array, and it is, the objective of this example is to return the sum of the elements of of the array. Now we are supplying an initial value 0. Okay, so we are doing array1.reduce and we are taking a callback function. So let me change a little for you. So I'll write const callback so that it is easy for you to understand. This is my callback function. Okay, and this is my callback function, and this callback function is going to accept what is it? It is going to accept initial value and current value. Okay, so initial value, or we can say that previous value, This is much more clear, right? So when we execute callback function, we have to pass two things, right? You remember, we have to pass a previous value and we have to pass a current value. So previous value, current value, and do something with it. Do what? So let us say that we want to return, we want to uh, do the summations. So we can do previous value plus we can do current value, and we can get rid of this whatever they have written, we don't need. And we can also get rid of initial value for now. Let us take everything over here. Okay, now we pass the callback function. Okay, now we pass the callback function, and okay, now let us run this. We got a 10. Now let us suppose we pass a initial value of 0, then again we will get a 10, right? So this is the functionality of reduce. And one more thing, we can also verify the index values. Okay, so I can do a return this, and there is one more parameter called index. Okay, index over here. So I can write console.log at index. Okay, and I'll print the index for you. Okay, let us execute it. So see, when we provided a initial value, the index started from 0 and it went up to 3. Now let us suppose if I don't provide initial value, see the index started from 1, because it treats this as a starting pointer and it treats 1 as the initial value there. Okay, and we can print the previous value and current value as well, so that it becomes a little clear to you. See, the previous value becomes 1, the current value becomes 2. So it is started from index 1 for the value 2. Okay, let's suppose if we pass the initial value, then what is the scenario? See, it is started from index 0, the previous value was treated as initial value, that is 0, and 1 was the current value from index 0 actually. Okay, so this was pretty much the overall gist of array.reduce. Okay, and this is the basic syntax. So these are the 4 values that the callback can take: the previous value, the current value, the index, and the array. Okay, and this is pretty much what you have to learn about the reduce. Now let us go ahead and create the polyfill of reduce. Okay, and yeah, we are here in the VS Code. Let's create a file, reduce.js. And yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention. So there are some edge scenarios where, let's suppose my array is empty, right? My array is empty, and I called this reduce function with a callback, but this time the array one is empty. Now guess what will be the output over here? So output is the initial value only. So if I change my initial value to 110, then 110 will be returned. Okay, but the problem becomes if I don't pass the initial value and the array one is also empty. Okay, then this will throw an error saying that reduce of empty array with no initial value. Okay, so this is not allowed in reduce. And one thing also not allowed is the array one should not be undefined. Okay, this is also wrong. Array one should not be null. This is also wrong. Okay, so these are the 3 cases that we have to be careful when writing a polyfill. Okay, now let us come over here and write some code. Let me zoom in a little, hope it is clear, visible to you. And I'll do function. Okay, first of all, let me uh, write the the parameters for the callback function. They are previous value, previous value, current value, index, and array. Okay, we saw it just now, right? We saw it over here, that this is the syntax of the callback, and this is what we had provided as the parameters over here: previous value, current value, index, and we can take array as well. Okay, you can print the array as well, and change it to like this and add 1 2 over here, and see, you can print the arrays as well over here, and we can pass the initial value. Okay, fine. So we are over here, correct, fine. Now let's create our function MakeMyReduce. We can take whatever the name we want, it is our code, and sorry, we can write it like this. And let me write one code over here, and let me see if you guys can guess it. Why am I writing so? If I write where array equals to this, okay, so are you able to recognize this? If not, then I'll suggest you to check out this particular series, JS Oops Under the Hood, and you can check for this particular video how this keyword works in JavaScript. So I have explained it in detail how things work. Okay, so this is, I think, required. And before moving forward, I have a small message from Geeks for Geeks. So recently I came across a course, React JS Basic to Advanced. This is provided on Geeks for Geeks, and this particular course has many things to offer, like course introduction, like what is React, basics of React, where to use React in JavaScript, and the project setups. Then followed by you have the React basics and components, like what is JSX, how to create components, dynamic data handling, and you'll be given 2 assignments as well. Then comes the state handling, like how to maintain states, optimizations, and form handling, and multiple states as well. Then there is conditional rendering, like how to render stuffs on the page. And we have handling side effects, like what is use effect. This is very crucial for the interviews as well. And we have the API calls, how to make network calls via in Axios in React. And you'll be given a project over here, probably updating a card, so kind of a e-commerce project. And here comes the Redux, like how we can implement Redux over here. And we have multi-page SPAs, we have authentication and deployment on AWS S3. Cool. So this is pretty much a bag of a knowledge for you, and you can check this course on Geeks for Geeks. The link to the course is in the description, and you can use my code JS Cafe to avail 10% discount on this course. Not just this, you can use my code JS Cafe to get 10% discount on any course that is present on Geeks for Geeks. So let's come back to the video. Let's close this and let's come back to coding. So we are calling this function reduce by via doing array 1 dot. Okay, so if you want to access things that are before the dot, we use this keyword. Okay, so we can do like this, where array equals to this, and we can check that. So before assigning this keyword to array variable, we can make a simple check that if not this, okay, then throw new error and say that array is not defined. Okay, we can write our own custom errors. Now we have made a necessary check that the array should be defined. Okay, it should not be null or it should not be undefined over here. Now we get our array over here, and this function will take 2 things I forgot to mention. This will take callback, this will take initial value, correct? Now we have to have an index, where index that will tell that this will be index of the elements of the array, okay, that we are currently traversing at. Okay, the idea is to traverse on every element of array, right? So we have to have an index that will keep telling us, okay, I am currently at index 0, I am at index 1, now I am at index 2, and so on. So currently the index should be 0. Okay, we are starting it from over here. And we also have to have a placeholder that should contain or preserve values that are happening after each iteration, right? We got the idea over here, right? Whenever we are executing anything, whenever we are executing for a particular element, we have to have remember the previous computed value as well. Okay, so I'll call it as accumulator, and this would be some value. Okay, we are not sure what it has to be. Okay, we got the basic stuffs. Now remember that I mentioned two scenarios with you over here, that the first time the callback is run and no return value of previous calculation, right? So the first time that the callback is run, there is no return value. Then if supplied initial value, then we use that initial value as it is. Otherwise, we start from index 1. Okay. So we have to check that if initial value was passed or not. Okay. So if initial value is passed, then we have to treat this initial value as the accumulator. Okay. So accumulator becomes initial value, and it is fine to start the index from 0. But what if initial value was not passed? Then we have to treat accumulator as the element that is present at index 0. So it would be array of 0, and we have to increment index by 1. We have to increment index by 1. Or in shorthand, what we can do is we can write index plus plus. Okay, index plus plus means that when index plus plus is computed, so index value will change to 1, but over here the value which will be seen to us would be 0. Okay, this means that array of 0 and the value of index is updated to 1. Okay, don't get confused over here, this is shorthand property. Okay, now we are done with most of the stuffs. We have handled the cases, and yeah, and also we have to handle one more case over here. You remember that if we keep our array as empty and we pass the initial value, and if we run it, that initial value is returned as it is, and if the array is not defined, then it throws some error. Okay, so yeah, so let us have that check as well. If you know, or what we can do is, if initial value is over here and we have over here, okay, let us add one more variable and say var n equals to array.length. Okay, and we see that if not n, okay, if the array is empty, okay, if the array is empty and if initial value was supplied to us, okay, then there is no point of moving further. Just return the initial value, else throw an error. Okay, throw an error and say um you know you need to pass, what we can say, you need to pass initial value if array is empty. Okay, this is fine, I guess. And so we have all the basic checks over here. We had this first check, we had the second check, and this is the conditional, where we are checking upon the initial value, that if the initial value is present, then use that as accumulator. Otherwise, our accumulator will become the element at index 0, and the iteration will start from index 1. Now here comes the easy part. I'll write a simple while loop. While index is less than n. Okay, the simple while loop, we are iterating over each element, and I'll say that accumulator equals to callback. Okay, because every time we execute the callback function, now we have to update the accumulator value with the computed value that was returned after executing the callback function. Okay, so what we have to pass over here, we have to pass the previous value. Previous value becomes accumulator. What is the current value? Current value is the element that is being currently traversed, which is array of index. What is the current index and what is the array? And we do index plus plus, right? And we do a return accumulator. Fine. Now let us try to execute it, and before that we have to add our function into the prototype. So we'll do array.prototype dot the function name MyReduce equals to MyReduce. Okay, now let's go ahead and create array. This is 1 2 3 cons in the value. Okay, this is initial value. Let's suppose our initial value is 1. Okay, now let's create a const callback equals to function. This callback takes two values. Okay, previous value and current value. Okay, and what it does is it just sums these two values up. Okay, nothing fancy. Now let's do console.log, and I'm gonna call this arr dot MyReduce and my callback. And for now, let's just don't pass any initial value. Now let me do node reduce, and we got it 6 3 4 5 6. Let's suppose we pass a initial value as a second argument. The value becomes 7, perfectly fine. Now let us empty our array. Let's see if the initial value is returned or not. Great, initial value was returned. And let's suppose if I forget to pass initial value as well, it says that, oh man, you need to pass an initial value if the array is empty. Perfectly fine. Okay. And one more case, let's suppose if my array becomes null. Okay, cannot execute these things. Okay, cannot read properties of null, reading MyReduce. I think, okay, cannot read. Acha, okay, perfect. So we can write like this, I guess, if this equals to null, probably. Okay, so the reason being this is called because we are attaching our prototype to reduce and not with the null or the undefined. That is why this function is not available to a null or undefined. So this check was fine actually. And let's suppose if we do it undefined as well over here and try to run node reduce, so again it will throw cannot read properties of undefined. This is too obvious because we are attaching our MyReduce function with the prototype of array, not with the objects. Okay, so this was understood, but having this check is a cherry on the top always. If you are having an interview, then you must pass all the necessary checks, you must add all the necessary if conditions, and you should do error handling very well. Okay, So this was all about the polyfill of array.prototype.reduce. Hope you liked it. If you have any questions regarding this, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. And the like target of this video is 50 likes. If you see that the likes are less than 50, then go ahead and smash that like button. And yeah, this was all in this video. Till then, take care. Goodbye. See you in the next one.